Cities right across this country are cracking down increasingly on anyone who does not practice physical distancing. Particularly now, and this was the warning from Ontario Premier Doug Ford on Friday, the weather's getting so nice and many more people want to be outdoors. Over the weekend, very much the case, and many people are certainly following the rules, keeping that 6 feet, 2 meter distance, but others clearly are not. And so you're seeing more and more police officers issuing warnings and even fines. Let's go to Brett Ruskin, who's in Halifax this morning. That province is one of the strictest in the country in terms of enforcement. Brett, what is happening there?
Heather, Nova Scotia isn't often number one in the country for something, but this case we are. The enforcement is seemingly the strictest here than across the entire country. One of the first tickets handed out for COVID-19 related matters happened right here at Point Pleasant Park behind me. A woman was given a ticket, and these tickets are between $700, $1,000, up to $7,500 for businesses that fail to comply with the orders given by health authorities here in Nova Scotia or at various other provinces. Now, if we keep looking at Nova Scotia, we have seen 55 tickets handed out across the province so far since this pandemic began. Dozens of them happened on Saturday alone here in Halifax. Police have stepped up the enforcement. They're no longer in the education phase as they started with. Now they are handing out tickets for everything from failing to self-isolate to failing to keep 2 meters distance between people and failing to gather in groups smaller than 5 people. So it's messaging that we've certainly heard before, but now it seems like enforcement is stepping up here in Nova Scotia. Heather.
Okay, so that's a close look at where you are, but give us the national picture, Brett, because we're certainly hearing about more and more, bylaw enforcement officers on the job and more warnings and fines being handed out. What's the national perspective?
We have warnings, fines being handed out. Taking a look at Toronto, there were 9 tickets handed out by Toronto Police on Saturday, 1 by bylaw officers in Toronto, 19 tickets in Hamilton handed out by bylaw officers, folks who are visiting golf courses, parks, beaches, trails, things like that. We also saw some stranger or different circumstances. For example, there was in New Brunswick 2 people who had just come from abroad, who were coming back home to Canada, who had traveled internationally, were charged with assault because they were purposely coughing on under individuals. Also in Summerside, Prince Edward Island, someone who came from abroad who was coming back had to self-isolate for 2 weeks, was told by police once he should when he was out and about, told by police again when he was out and about. The third time he was caught not self-isolating, he was handed a $1,000 ticket. So police across the country cracking down on people who aren't abiding by these COVID-19 measures. Heather.
Brett, thank you very much. Watching the national scene for us, Brett is there in Halifax.